Hi, I'm Ken Auer, owner of Rock Solid Warrior. I'd like to introduce you to the sport of ninja. Before discussing the current state of the sport, I'd like to give you a little history. In 2016, I was barely aware of the reality TV show called American Ninja Warrior, even though it had started in 2009, inspired by the hit show in Japan called Sasuke, which began in 1997. But in 2017, our friends at Warrior Tech opened up their gym in Morrisville, North Carolina, and my two sons jumped in. We learned that there was actually a sport that had been inspired by the show that was rapidly growing. Although completely independent of the reality TV show, the sport has consistently kept two things from the show: fun and challenging obstacle courses that challenge athletic abilities, and a community of encouragement where athletes cheer each other on as it is us against the obstacles. We were entering the sport in its early years and soon found out that there were both independent competitions, whether just in-house or open to a wider audience, and league competitions. We also heard rumors of a few other events besides American Ninja Warrior that, well, I didn't really know what they were, and for the sake of time and relevance, I'm going to skip those that have fallen by the wayside and stick to the things that have led us to where we are today. We found out that there were different rules for different competitions, and from what I could tell at the time, none of them had a great way to keep score or let the audience and observers know what the standings were. Any sport in its early days is going to look very different than it will later as technology, organizations, and expertise evolve. From what I've learned, there were a handful of gyms that had opened up since 2010 that would have occasional competitions. Eventually, in 2015, two different sets of people decided to organize those gyms and competitions in the form of a league. The National Ninja League, or NNL, was founded by Chris Wilczewski and others and was based in New Jersey. The Ultimate Ninja Athlete Association, or UNAA, was founded by Bob Clark and others and was based in New Mexico. They each had different rules and both started with around 10 gyms in their first season. They both grew quickly, and we were fortunate enough that our son Joshua had qualified for both leagues' finals in his age group as they were both finishing season 3 in 2018. That same year, he was also chosen to be on American Ninja Warrior Jr. and made it to the semifinals. In 2019, my older son Caleb had the opportunity to compete on American Ninja Warrior and made it all the way to the finals in Las Vegas. Through these experiences and many of the people we met, we learned a lot about each of the organizations, as well as the people inside and outside the organizations. It became clear that the reality TV show and the sport both had their own independent, but sometimes overlapping lives, and both leagues were clearly feeling growing pains. In the middle of all this, I happened to own a custom software company that was looking to explore the development of some of our own technologies and started exploring the potential market for some software for running ninja competitions. We found out that the number of gyms was quickly growing, and that if it kept growing, there would eventually be a sustainable market for such software. Ninja Master was born, and after being tried and tested at a few independent events, was adopted as a standard for the Athlete Warrior Games League that started in 2018 in the Midwest to address what they saw as some shortcomings in other leagues. NinjaWorks, that had previously been focused on hardwired equipment like buzzers and timers, was also adding some software to help support the National Ninja League. And by the end of the year, the Ultimate Ninja Athlete Association began to adopt Ninja Master as its standard. Today, just about every competition and every league uses some kind of software to keep track of individual competition leaderboards and league standings. But getting those gyms and leagues technology to help them organize their competitions is only part of the story of how we got to where we are today. Some of the pioneering gyms learned the hard way that adult athletes who experienced some success on the show, as well as the American Ninja Warrior wannabes, would not be able to supply the number of memberships it would take to sustain a gym. Ninja Warrior parties, camps, classes for kids, and letting kids compete in the sport began to be the clear way to grow their businesses and sport in general. Today, although there are still a lot of adults involved and even master's divisions for those who are 40 plus, kids under 18 involved in the sport outnumber 18 plus by about 3 to 1, and at least double that if you count the amount of time spent training and competing in the hundreds of ninja gyms around the country. Those that learned the lessons from the early pioneers' successes and failures have helped the sport grow to what it is today. The number of young people who are growing up focused on and dedicated to the sport, rather than just a few adults seeing ninja as a fun activity with dreams of being on the show, will keep it growing strong. And of course, the adults who pioneered the sport and the ones that came after them continue to inspire the kids as to what they can become. In addition to being great athletes, many of those adults use their creative skills to develop innovative obstacles to push the sport forward. In addition to those creative types' handmade obstacles, there are now a number of manufacturers of various obstacles and equipment to supply the gyms, as well as backyard, basement, and attic courses that are used everywhere for training and competitions. How much longer the show will go on is anyone's guess, but the sport, although still young, is established in its own right and is poised to live well beyond the life of the reality TV show. When we opened our first Rock Solid Warrior location in Fuquay Arena, North Carolina in 2019, we were told by our insurance agent that Ninja Warrior was the fastest growing sport in the nation. Unfortunately, while still in its infancy, COVID hit and really tested the entire ninja community. Some organizations didn't make it through, but now we're back on track. Even so, it is still a fairly young sport that is still working through some challenges. Some of the really unique things about the sport is the freedom and innovation that keeps it continually evolving and improving. Unlike some other sports like gymnastics, where the events are pretty strictly constrained, course designers and obstacle manufacturers are constantly coming up with new ideas. When you come to a competition, you never fully know what to expect, other than a challenge. As it is still a growing sport, sometimes the courses are put together by people with less experience and less investment, and some events can be a little disappointing. Other times, the courses are more challenging than an athlete's ready for. Sometimes, when a course designer pushes the envelope with innovative obstacles, something can go wrong, like an obstacle malfunction, which interrupts the flow of an event. As long as you exercise some patience, as you recognize that things may not always go perfectly smoothly, and appreciate the efforts of the event organizers to be innovative, you'll typically find the events a joy as you watch the amazing athletes push themselves to conquer the challenges set before them. In a strange kind of way, the sport is a little like golf. It takes a decent amount of investment to create a facility to host events. There are larger ones and smaller ones, as well as more polished and less polished ones. It's difficult and expensive to put up a set of courses quickly. So the vast majority of competitions are held at facilities that are already built. Like golf courses, there are similarities between facilities, but the design and quality may vary significantly. But unlike golf courses, the ability to change the course from day to day is very possible, and at some facilities, highly likely. As a whole, the leaders in the ninja community generally embrace the idea of experimentation and innovation, while we also recognize the need for increased safety and enough constraints to not have to guess at what kind of competition you are going to participate in. As much as some of the obstacles may look pretty scary, ninja is actually a very safe sport compared to many others, as long as a few well-known precautions are taken. But safety is a topic of another video we've released recently. Although innovation is generally encouraged, there are some calling for more uniformity in the sport. For example, the Federation of International Ninja Athletes adds some more constraints to provide uniformity while still allowing for some creativity. Some coming to the sport from gymnastics think a lot of the equipment should be standardized. Others think that more variety is something to be embraced. It's a balancing act that will probably go on for a while. We believe the cream will rise to the top, as we are already beginning to see. But that cream currently does not have and probably will not end up with a single flavor. In addition to the various league events, there are a decent number of gyms that host independent events that are not sanctioned by any league, ranging from beginner-friendly competitions to advanced multi-stage events. We expect that these independent events will also continue for quite some time. At this point, there is no single governing body that is over the entire sport, but each league has its own governing body, and each gym is free to act independently or choose to host league-sanctioned events. Generally speaking, only the league-sanctioned events have to be in some level of compliance with the governing body sanctioning the events. Some leagues are more restrictive than others in what they will sanction. In the meantime, World Obstacle, led by Ian Adamson, is working through all of the hoops necessary to have the sport of obstacle course racing recognized internationally. One can think of obstacle course racing as analogous to track and field, with a variety of events ranging from sprints to marathons, as well as a variety of other specialized skills. The sport of ninja would be more analogous to the shorter type of races versus long-distance running, where Spartan races would be an example. Ian is an accomplished athlete, including being 7-time adventure race world champion, as well as a successful biathlete and triathlete. He's working within the politics of national, international, and Olympic committees to get obstacle course racing of various kinds recognized as an Olympic sport. In 2023, World Obstacle joined with the International Modern Pentathlon in its efforts to bring the sport of ninja into the modern pentathlon as the first step to entering the Olympics. Also in 2023, USA Ninja Association was created and held its first event at Obstacle Expo in Orlando. This is a side-by-side 100-meter speed course that is the model proposed to enter the Olympics as part of the modern pentathlon in 2028. But whether it ever becomes an Olympic sport, it's still growing, and we expect that it will be for a long time. In the last few years, we've seen the growth of regional leagues that provide a good entry to the sport for beginners as well as those who just want to limit travel in order to participate. There are a half dozen or more regional leagues in various areas of the nation where there are a reasonable amount of ninja gyms within a few hours of each other. At this point, the regional leagues all formed and act independently of each other, and each decides on its own set of rules. We suspect that, over the long haul, there may be some way where the regional leagues feed into some larger organization directly, but that is not yet on the drawing board of any significant party that we know. Our Ninja Carolina League, we adopted the basic rules of the now defunct Athlete Warrior Games, which adopted its rules from one of the Australian leagues. We feel these rules work well for both beginners and more advanced athletes, giving progress points as an athlete progresses through the obstacles. We also provide both beginner and advanced divisions for all age groups, which do not yet exist in the more established leagues for any age but adults. We believe this will be a trend as athletes new to the sport are not capable of competing with accomplished athletes who have been at it for several years, and that eventually there may be several recognized levels of athletes with competitions identified for each level. Right now, Rock Solid Warrior has defined its own levels with tests to advance to different levels. We generally recommend that levels 2 and 3 are ready for beginner competitions, and the more advanced competitors are what we define as level 4 and above. For those who would like to see how they stack up against other athletes around the country, one might want to compete in one of the established leagues. Although many have their opinions as to which is better and why, the reality is that a lot of an athlete's experience with the league is based more on the quality of the events put on by the individual gyms than anything inherent in the league itself. The number of opportunities to compete in league events also may have a lot to do with your geography. FINA is more prevalent in the middle and northern part of the country. The WNL is more prevalent in the northeast part of the U.S., and the UNAA is more prevalent in the other parts of the U.S. In the southeast, we are kind of in the middle of both the WNL and UNAA's strongest territories. At Rock Solid Warrior, we've chosen to host UNAA events. Other gyms in the area have chosen to host WNL events. Currently, no gyms in the Carolinas are scheduled to host any FINA events. Athletes can choose to ignore these leagues if they don't want to compete with athletes from farther away than their local region. Or they may want to try out more than one just to get a feel for which they prefer. If you like to travel, you can go far and wide to explore all sorts of events, as there are a few weekends that you can't find an event somewhere. Most athletes that have been competing for a while concentrate on a regional league if they have one in their area, and choose one of the larger leagues to focus on for additional opportunities to compete with a broader base of athletes. Most would say that the WNL markets itself better, but tends to have shorter courses. The UNA has a broader reach and tends to have longer courses. FINA has a unique approach to more uniform courses. The National Ninja League recently rebranded itself as the World Ninja League, WNL. Although they have established regions over the last few years, their largest regions, in terms of number of gyms and athletes, are New England and the Northeast. The Southeast is probably their next largest region, and they have a smattering of gyms and athletes that participate across the nation. They also have some association with some smaller events and leagues in other parts of the world, mostly Europe. Until recent seasons, they offered only one kind of course for their qualifiers. They now call this kind a flow course, which is like the show, in that as soon as you fail an obstacle, you are done. Recently, they began to offer a variety of other courses: skills course, full courses, challenge courses, etc. They have unique and complicated scoring systems to try to address the challenges of the flow course, where one mistake means the best athlete might be out of the running early. The jury's still out on whether those rules are getting the intended results and whether they'll make more adjustments in the future. Some WNL gyms will host two types of courses on the same weekend to make traveling a farther distance, or for those already in the neighborhood, more attractive. Each course is its own qualifier, and generally speaking, the top three in any event who have not qualified yet will qualify for regionals. Athletes also accumulate points over the season to put them in a better run position for regionals or finals. This kind of encourages people who start in the WNL to keep competing and chasing points, which some athletes enjoy and some abhor, as their goal is just to get to the finals for the level of competition they really enjoy. The finals typically have been at Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina, which makes it a bit more attractive than it used to be for athletes in the Southeast. Their season starts in late summer and used to end in February, but recently has been extended to having regionals in May and finals in June. The Ultimate Ninja Athlete Association, or UNAA, was established in the Southwest. It tends to get more athletes outside of the East Coast. In the US, they have area qualifiers at a variety of gyms around the country through mid to late April. Athletes need to finish in the top 50% of those who haven't already qualified to qualify for regionals. Athletes who qualify for regionals can attempt to qualify for world finals at one or more regional events. There's typically around one regional event per state. Regionals typically have more difficult courses and more difficult qualification criteria, where only the top 20% who have not previously qualified in the regionals advance to the world finals. The world finals has been held in different places through the years. Over the last 2 years, it has been combined with what's been called the Obstacle Sports Expo, where FINA, the UNAA, and the USA Ninja Association all have some of their events at the same time. The rules for UNAA courses are a bit simpler and provide some opportunities for progress points, with many obstacles being worth 2 points. 1 point for getting halfway through an obstacle, and 2 for completing it. They also stop adding points after an athlete completely fails 3 obstacles, or time limit is hit. Official time stops at the last completed obstacle before they stop scoring. Standings in an event are determined by points first, and time only comes into play to break a tie. The UNA also offers a variety of events that reach beyond the US borders in various ways, including the World Ninja Athlete Games that tries to reproduce a similar course being run the same week all over the world in early March every year. They also added Ultimate OCR 3K races in the previous years. FINA was established in 2019 as a brainchild of Patrick Hall of Hybrid Ninja in the Buffalo area. Patrick has been a long-term member of the sport and founded FINA in response to what he saw as a lack of consistency and quality of ninja events. FINA prides itself in event uniformity without taking away the creativity or flavor of each gym. They offer both speed and endurance events. Some gyms will host both in the same weekend. They have been established in the North and have slowly and steadily been growing, with qualifiers and sectional finals coming in June. Their finals will be held as part of the Obstacle Sports Expo. Their rules are pretty straightforward. Speed courses will be made up of 8 obstacles of specified categories, and athletes will get 1 point for each obstacle successfully completed within the associated time limit. An athlete can qualify for sectionals by either successfully completing all 8 obstacles in a single qualifier or accumulating 21 points throughout the qualifier season. Endurance courses will be made up of 12 obstacles of specified categories, and athletes will get 1 point for each obstacle successfully completed with no more than 15 seconds of rest between obstacles. An athlete can qualify for sectionals by either successfully completing all 12 obstacles in a single qualifier or accumulating 31 points throughout the qualifier season. Athletes who qualify for sectionals can attempt as many sectionals as they desire to attempt to qualify for world finals by successfully completing the speed or endurance course at a sectional event. Most of the leagues typically try to host people of all age divisions in a single event, where each athlete only gets to run one course, at least until they get to finals. These finals typically consist of multiple stages and only happen once per year. But there have been a variety of independent events that try to offer more to a targeted set of people, including the possibility of multiple courses and prize money for the winners. In the last few years, these events have typically offered the most challenging courses and attracted the most accomplished athletes. In the years between 2019 and 2021, there were a couple of attempts to create a professional league based loosely on the most challenging events that were not sustainable for various reasons. However, in 2021, Chris DeGangi and Ethan Swanson, two veterans of the sport, sought to learn from the mistakes and successes of others and took a long-term view of building the professional sport. They created the Ninja Sport Network to produce a channel to access the best the sport has to offer. And, as a subset to that, they created the Ninja Sport Championship Series, or NSC. Season 1 included 6 qualifying events at hand-picked gyms with top course designers using a format of an open round, with the top 10 male and top 10 female athletes advancing to the final round. The final round consisted of 3 courses: a speed course, a technical/hybrid course, and a burnout or endurance course. The combined ranking of placement in each of these 3 courses produced 5 qualified men and women for the finals, as well as prize money for those that got onto the podium at each qualifier. This format resulted in a finals event with 30 of the top men and women ninja athletes ever assembled in a single event for 2 days of 3 courses to identify the top athletes in the sport. In recent years, they have expanded to 8 qualifiers, producing 4 male and 4 female athletes qualified for the finals, which will have 32 top male and female athletes vying for the championship. The Ninja Sport Network is resolved to slowly but surely add a variety of highest quality events for the best in the sport. They currently allow athletes that are 13 and over to participate in their NSC events. They also broadcast a select few other top events. They've also added the Ninja Sports Championship Youth Finals for those aged under 11 and aged under 13. Until they added that event, the only avenue for athletes under 13 to have the highest quality events were the finals of the leagues, or a few independent events like Rock Solid Warriors' annual Ninja Kids for Safe Kids charity event that offers multiple stages and raises money for safe families for children. We expect that there will be a few more high-quality events for the top Ninja Kids over the next few years. We'll see how the sport continues to evolve, but right now we're seeing an increasingly rising skill level by the top athletes and a growing number of people recognizing and providing opportunities for the beginners to enter the sport, which bodes well for the sport's continued growth. If you are new to the sport, it might seem a bit overwhelming, so here's what we recommend. If there is a regional league of some sort close to you, fully participate in it. If you train at Rock Solid Warrior, that could be the Ninja Carolina League. If you don't have a regional league, or you are consistently near the top of your division in your regional league, and would like to see how well you do with competition beyond the immediate region, consider one of the more established, larger leagues that host competitions in your area. For those who train at Rock Solid Warrior, the UNAA would be the logical choice. But there are several excellent gyms in the Carolinas that host WNL competitions that you may want to consider too. If or when you find yourself on or near the podium regularly in the established larger leagues, you may want to consider seeking out some of the top independent events. Or try your hand at one or more of the NSC qualifiers or youth championships. Even if you don't finish in the top half, you'll get to see and meet some of the best in the sport, and it could inspire you to keep training to get to that level. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or one of your coaches. Remember, it's not necessarily about being the best, but putting out your best and growing in your ability to overcome obstacles physically, mentally, and spiritually that will serve you well in all of life. I hope this was helpful, and remember to enjoy the journey in this great young sport of ninja.